In 1894, the American Medical Association put up a bronze statue of J. Marion Sims in New York City. It eventually moved to Central Park across from the Academy of Medicine, and the plaque called him a surgeon and a benefactor of women. 3 women built his career. Their names are not on the plaque. I'm Elliot Marsh, board-certified amateur in 19th century medical malpractice. This is the incident report, and today's incident is the guy your gynecologist's instruments are named after. So, the medical problem first, because it matters. In the 1840s, a thing called a vesico-vaginal fistula was one of the worst outcomes of childbirth. During a labor where the baby got stuck, and remember, no functional C-section yet, the pressure could tear a hole between the bladder and the vagina. The result was permanent leakage, constant, unfixable. Women with fistulas couldn't work, couldn't be in public, often couldn't stay in their own homes. In 1845, this was effectively a social death sentence. This was a real problem. Someone was going to invent the surgery. That part isn't the villain. The villain is the supply chain. J. Marion Sims was a surgeon in Mount Meigs, Alabama. He had publicly written that he disliked treating women and had no interest in gynecology. Then, around 1845, local plantation owners started bringing him enslaved women with fistulas, because the fistulas made the women unable to perform labor and the owners wanted the units functional again. That is the actual mechanism. The economic asset wasn't performing. The mechanic got called. A wellness influencer would call this a season of growth. This is your reminder that healing is not linear, and sometimes the universe puts you in rooms you didn't choose. Trust the process. Drink your water. Times, I need to be specific about what happened next because the system part matters more there, man. Between roughly 1845 and 1849, Sims performed experimental surgeries on at least 3 enslaved women whose names we know, Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy, plus an unknown number whose names we don't, because medical records of enslaved patients were not considered worth keeping. There was no established procedure. Every operation was experimental. He was figuring it out as he went. The historical record is clear that the surgeries were performed without anesthesia. Either had been public lead most rated as a surgeral anesthetic in 711 during his experimental years. Hugh know about it. He's dutier in his Kyria. He don't use it on Anarcha, Betsy, or Lucy. Minus chuma, the reasoning Sims himself put in lighting, drew on a widespread medical belief at the time that black patients didn't feel pain the way white patients did. This was not a fringe belief. It was taught. It was published. It was the working assumption of a significant chunk of American medicine for decades. I say this out loud because otherwise the next part sounds like one bad guy. It wasn't one bad guy. It was a curriculum. Anarcha is the one we know the most about, which is still almost nothing. She was around 17 when the surgery started. She had given birth during a labor that lasted 3 days. Over the next 4 years, Sims operated on her at least 30 times. 30. Same person, same part of the body. No anesthesia. While the surgeon iterated, the 30th surgery was the one Sims considered a success. He published. He moved to New York. Sims also had a staffing problem during these years. Other doctors used to come watch and assist with the operations. But after about a year, they stopped showing up. The procedures were too disturbing to assist with. So Sims trained the enslaved women themselves to assist him in operating on each other. Read that staffing model like a job posting. Now hiring, surgical assistant, on-site role, housing provided, mandatory, no compensation. Reports to the man performing the next procedure on you. Required. Previous experience as the patient. Growth opportunities include being named in a paper you cannot read. We'll be in touch. We won't. Great onboarding. In 1849, Sims left Alabama. He opened the Women's Hospital in New York, the first hospital in America dedicated to gynecological surgery. He performed the perfected technique on white patients there. He used ether. I want you to sit with the structure of that sentence, because this is the whole story in one beat. Same doctor, same hospital town, same procedure. The women who developed the technique didn't get anesthesia. The women who received the finished product did. That is not a story about one Alabama surgeon. That is a system with two doors and a sorting rule. The technique itself worked. It saved lives. Women who would have spent the rest of their lives in social exile got their lives back. Sims became internationally famous. He treated the Empress of France. He served as president of the AMA. He helped found the American Gynecological Society. He wrote a memoir called The Story of My Life, in which he mentioned Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy by first name only, briefly, in the context of his own genius. And the technique didn't retire when he did. A modified version of the Sims procedure is still taught. The position used in certain pelvic exams is still called the Sims position. The speculum on tray is still called the Sims speculum. If you have a uterus in the United States in 2026, statistically, you have met his work. Cool. About the statue. The AMA commissioned it in 1894. It landed in Central Park in 1934. It stands there for 18 years, across the street from the Academy of Medicine, where doctors walked past it going to lunch. The plate didn't include the words Anarcha, Betsy, Lucy, or enslaved. The first formal removal request was filed in 1989. The statue was removed in April 2018. The city's response time on that complaint was 29 years. And here is the part where a morning show anchor would cut to weather. Coming up after the break, a beloved century-old monument moves to a new home in Brooklyn. Plus, is your doctor's exam table named after someone? Stay with us. The names Anarcha, Betsy, and Lucy began appearing in mainstream medical textbooks in a substantial way after 2018, not before, after. A monument to the three women was unveiled in Montgomery, Alabama in 2021. Historian Deirdre Cooper Owens has done extensive recovery work, though some historians argue we will never know how much of their lives the record can return because the record was never built to hold them in the first place. So here's the part I keep getting stuck on, and I'm saying this as someone currently refreshing an inbox I have not replied to in 9 days, so calibrate accordingly. The standard medical progress story is a Wongai story, a surgeon, a breakthrough, a statue, clean, short, half-deleted. The actual Simsa story is a terms and conditions story. A document nobody read that everyone got enrolled in that says some bodies are practice and other bodies are patients. Click I agree by existing. No opt-out. The Dis-Pudi resolution process takes 170 years and ends with a small plate in a different borough. Anarcha, Betsy, Lucy, Kosers, and Credit history close the dat, minus